Yo guys, what's happening? What's going on? It's Classic. I want to talk a little bit about handling settings and specifically what I've done I say improve the handling, but kind of just dial it into what makes sense to me. And I wanted to share it with everyone because I think it's an improvement. So if anyone's kind of struggling with the handling or wants to make some changes, either watch this video, follow my settings, and if nothing else, it may just give you an idea of what you want to change, to dial things in to what you want. It's probably going to be a long video, so if you are impatient, in the description below I'll have my settings, so if you just want to copy them and give it a try, no problem. But I wanted to kind of talk through each option and why I chose what I chose, hopefully try and explain what a few things do. So let's kick off. No matter who you are and kind of what level you like to drive or how confident or experienced you are with driving games, I recommend anyone turns ESP off completely. From what I've found, it does some weird things which kind of, I think, make the handling feel worse than it is, or less predictable than it should be. Traction control and slide help, I'll get to that in a minute, because they don't seem to be, they can be kind of, dependent on your style. For me, ESP is what, it just stops the car moving in a predictable way. As you say, turn to the right, the back end of the car wants to go to the left. And so what ESP does is, halfway round the back end sliding, it stops it and keeps it in track. I mean, it's doing what an ESP system is supposed to do. What happens is, as you then turn to the left, your brain's not caught up, so you think the car's going to need more input than it does. And so instead of making a nice smooth curve, what you end up doing is going to like one side or the other, and the ESP just interferes too much with your inputs. And I like, after going left right for a few times, it lags and your inputs get out of sync with what the car's doing. I've got a couple of clips here which hopefully may show what I mean. It's a little bit difficult to see maybe in a clip, but give it a try and you'll soon understand what I mean. The other options you have in the Pro Settings section for each vehicle or class type is traction control and slide help. Now, from what I've found is, I think this is where the physics model kind of breaks down a little bit, in that the engine doesn't really understand when a wheel is spinning and the car has a certain slip angle to allow those wheels to continue to spin and to continue to kind of hold or increase that slip angle. The game seems to have some kind of auto braking, or at least wants to stop the tires from rotating. So even if traction control and slide help is completely off, it's still extremely difficult to pitch the car at an angle and keep it there. And so I think that's why they have the separate drift spec and kind of they've tweaked the handling model for those cars. You jump from one car to the other and you immediately notice that the drift cars are very front heavy, they kind of pivot over the front axle almost. So for me, I leave these on 8 and 8 both, because I just feel like the game doesn't want these cars to slide, and if you reduce these completely, you start to come into this grey zone of where the physics engine and reality kind of meet, and with your inputs just don't seem to have the desired effect, or at least for me. So I'm more than happy to leave these on 8 and 8, or both on full or whatever. The car will still kind of pitch to a slight angle, but the game's happy for it to kind of leave it there and let it stay there. In terms of the specific for each car settings, I'm probably going to look at those and do another video once I've unlocked them all. There may be a little bit more tweaking we can do in there, but there seems to be an inherent kind of issue with the physics model once you start to push those boundaries. So that brings us on to the controls settings through the options menu. Now there's a lot going on here, but I want to kind of explain what I chose and why I chose it. Maybe the throttle and brake a little bit more personal preference than anything, but in terms of the steering, I found some kind of big improvements tweaking with this stuff. So first things first is I want to talk about clamping. Now I've got this on max for everything, and I think that's important because if you play around with the steering clamping, you kind of understand the concept and what it means. But basically, it's how many snap angles can the steering go to. And so with a low clamping, there is less angles that the steering can snap to, and the car tends to tramline. With a high clamping rating, they kind of be, I guess, more sides to the circle, if you will, allowing you to get kind of more granular control over the steering inputs. And that seems to be the same for the throttle and brake. So I advise us stick them on max and leave it for everything. Steering dead zone for me is important to be on 0. Same with everything, same with throttle and brake. I want my inputs to be recognized immediately, and then I can work from there. What the game seems to do out of the box is they've added quite a bit of dead zone to the steering. I think to kind of give the cars more weighted feel, right? Because you have to kind of feel like you're having to wrench the steering to the left or right to get to do anything. But for me, with kind of the other changes, I still think the cars feel heavy, but you don't necessarily have to suffer that dead zone. And at slow speeds, adding dead zone just seems to complicate things. And like I said, having that immediate input reaction is way worth it for me. Same with throttle and brake, just want it there. Steering linearity is, I think the steering linearity is kind of more in terms of the concept than the others. But basically, what I think it means is that, how linear is the curve. So, if you turn to the right, you want that curve to be smooth in line with your inputs. And so the more linear you have it, the closer it is to a natural arc than anything. In terms of the throttle and brake, I found this to be, it kind of broke down. I don't necessarily just using the word linearity in the brake and throttle context to kind of, keep the menu looking the same. But in terms of the throttle, I found that having the dead zone 0 and linearity on 0, it gave you more immediacy from it. And with the linearity on 0, you can kind of, have, say, a quarter throttle, get access to that throttle immediately and be able to just hold the car at a constant rev. Where if you add throttle linearity all the way to the positive, it seems to do some weird things, and it kind of seems to add more dead zone to it, and it's just not as responsive as I want it. So that's on 0. Again, maybe personal preference. In terms of brake linearity, I found this was how you adjust the brakes for when they start to lock. Now, I've got ABS on full, but the game still seems to, at least audibly, show that those tyres are locking. I found I've got it on 5, which seemed to be good in terms of, I want to be able to pull the trigger, say, halfway before you start to get that lock in, because I'm used to that on, say, Forza Horizon, and so my muscle memory is to just pull that trigger halfway and kind of hold it there to get the maximum brake in. And with the added Icon Pro settings, you can adjust the brake bias and brake strength. So you can, but again, I think that's personal preference. But yeah, so that is my set. I think the big ones are steering dead zone on 0, ESP definitely off, and then clamping full and steering linearity on full. Everything else with throttle and brake is kind of personal preference, but I found making these tweaks has really improved it. I feel the cars respond to my inputs better, and yeah, have a play around, see what you think. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I'm going to continue to play around with this, so if I find anything major, I'll probably get back on another video. But yeah, hope you find it useful, guys, and catch you soon.